Hello everybody and welcome back to the Ōkami walkthrough. So, we're pretty much nearing the end of the game now. We're heading into the final proper dungeon, and seeing as we got a wonderful new glaive, we're going to use that rather than, the glaive that we bought a few parts ago, because that basically turned out to be useless. But we are going to make use of Thunder Edge because it's the most powerful weapon we've got on us at the minute, and also, it's badass, it's bloody sizzling with electricity. It's beautiful. But yes, we need to head into the Wawku shrine in an attempt to defeat the twin demons Lechku and Nechku, because they are what's causing this blizzard, and obviously if we don't stop the blizzard, everyone is going to freeze to death. But yes, this is our final proper dungeon. There is a technical final dungeon that's going to take place after this, but it's not really a dungeon, more something else, which most people who've played a Capcom game before, at least from this period, would recognise. So this is our final dungeon, for all intents and purposes. And here we are in the Wawku Shrine. As you've probably guessed, the entire theme of this dungeon is ice and snow. So we're going to be doing a lot of slipping and sliding everywhere, and it's probably not going to be that pretty. Now, I think I just got this particular glaive out just to show off what it looks like in action, because, it's gotten absolutely no use whatsoever. So that was why that was there. But we have these wonderful kind of warthog gun turrets, well, warthog cannons, I suppose. Basically what you need to do is Veil of Mist, so that you can see the evil attacks coming towards you, and then you can reflect them back. Basically, if you want a comparison, you're looking at the... oh god, what are they called? So if you think about, like, King Caliente in Super Mario Galaxy, the other octo creatures that you face throughout the game, it's like them, except you've got to power slash back rather than spin attack. And I have to say, sort of, I like this dungeon, because it does act as a nice kind of conclusion, so you get to use all of your brush techniques in some form or another. So we've already used Veil of Mist, we've already used Power Slash, we're going to have to make use of Firestorm, and all sorts of others. So it's a very kind of complete dungeon, if that makes any sense. So obviously we have spent a long time getting all of our brush techniques, and now we get a dungeon where everything that we've learned comes into play, basically. And now you can see just how powerful this glaive can be. Obviously it's not my favourite weapon in the world. No, those are the final rosaries that we get, and even though I think I did slightly butcher up things earlier on, because I was just like, oh yeah, these resurrection beads are totally the final weapon. No, they're not. The actual final weapon in the game, which is those rosaries, they're not available for purchase until after this dungeon is complete. And even then, they are a ridiculous price. So the likelihood of you being able to purchase it before entering kind of the final area is somewhat small. If you do however manage it, you can get it outside the final area. And I would recommend trying to do that, because then you can use it however you like. But important thing to note about the Thunder Edge is that because it's obviously brimming with electricity, you can actually use Thunder Strike from it. So it is a source of electricity, which is so useful. Not necessarily as useful as some other weapons, but it's still really great. And now we are introduced to our first puzzle. which is slightly, well, not completely complicated, but it does require, so we've got like the firestorm here, and then we're going to need to kind of place things, and all sorts. Essentially what we need to do is balance the two scales out so that we can roll the snowball across. And obviously, since it's a snowball, it'll freeze us if we touch it, so we'd have to use Gale Storm to get across. So it's all things like that where all of our brush techniques come together, which is a really nice kind of touch. Now, in the time between the last part and now, I have done a little bit of jiggery-pokery looking about at stuff, and Laochi Lake, which is where the Ark of Yamato is sitting, I found out that Laochi, or in Japanese as it is Ryochi, basically that means rainbow in the Ainu language, and rainbows are seen as inauspicious symbols by the Ainu people, so it's basically a lake of bad luck. Which certainly makes sense considering everything that everyone thinks about it. But then we have the Wawku Shrine, or as its Japanese name is, the Iriwaku Shinden. Basically, the name Wawku and Iriwaku is derived from the Ainu language, well, the Ainu word Iawak, which means brother. Now, the Afun Gate, which I believe was the big gate at the front that we entered through, takes its name from the Ainu Ahun, which means to enter. Because, obviously, we need these literal names because, I mean, they're just helpful and useful, and I love them. And thankfully, after a while of the art book not being the most useful thing to us ever, there are quite a few pictures to do with Ezofuji in the Wawku Shrine. So, we'll begin in this first bit, and then I can go on to the later ones as we come across the certain extras that are available to us. So, as you may have noticed, Ezofuji is a dungeon of machine and ice. To best suit Lechku and Nechku, this area's bosses, the dungeon was designed with a mechanical theme, not too high-tech, mind you, but rather somewhere along the lines of the Meiji and Taishu eras of Japan. The initial design was comprised of two symmetrical twin towers that you progressed through by using mirrors to jump back and forth between them, though obviously that whole jumping through mirrors thing didn't make it into the final game, but the mirrors themselves are still all around, and it's quite a cool thing. And here we have a wonderful time to use Catwalk. So I think at the minute we haven't used Bloom. Haven't used... Oh no, we have used Water Spout because we used Fountain to get up here. So we've pretty much used most of our techniques by this point. And then here's another instance where Veil of Mist is necessary because we need to slow down time to get across these things. And yeah, I just really like the idea of this dungeon. In terms of actually playing it, it's maybe not the most exciting thing in the world. In a way, it's a little bit overly long, and yeah. But I would say it's still pretty gosh darn enjoyable, and I appreciate it. Well, I suppose that you can say that's basically me in a nutshell, with quite a lot of video games and stuff that I tend to, experience. I appreciate it. Whether, that is actually saying, well, this is an excellent thing, as I would say with Ōkami, or whether it's just something that tries to do stuff and tries really hard but doesn't necessarily always succeed. Because there are certainly more than a few games and films and so on that I have experienced that I would certainly say do not fit the category of being good, but they certainly try. And this is a very hideous chest to get. Basically, you need to double jump your way around the edge of the tower on these little ledges, and oh god, it's mean. Oh, good grief. We are going to do it, because there's a treasure chest and it's important. Have to say though, I'm pretty sure that I have missed 1 or 2 treasure chests in this dungeon, largely because, unlike pretty much all the other dungeons, some of these chests are difficult. There's nothing important in them, so we're not missing out on anything other than, I think, a treasure, but it's not a treasure that is not already in our treasure chest guide thing. But yeah, it's really finicky to try and do these jumps because you've got to jump all the way out and then jump all the way back in again, and you're wrestling with the camera, and yeah, it's one of those instances where I think they should have gone with something a little bit different. Because it's not Ōkami at its best state. Still, you can see some enemies over there that look a little bit dangerous to the touch. So I wonder whether we're going to be able to deal with them shortly. I mean, I damn well hope so, otherwise we're not going to be able to climb any higher. But we're going to save up and then continue onwards. If I recall correctly, this was the point where I had to have my kind of... Well, it might have been the point where I had my change in recording session. It depends. The thing with recording sessions is that sometimes, like, I mean, the way that I did the entirety of this game was that I desperately wanted to try and do, like, get to a dungeon, have a break, do the dungeon, have a break. Kind of just make it all nice and balanced, not overly stress myself out, etc. Obviously, I mean, Ōkami's not a stressful game, but like when you're going through the process of recording, you need to have that level of just chill, because over-recording can lead to kind of terrible gameplay. Because if you're recording like for 5-10 hours straight, then it's not going to end well for you. Sure, you might be an excellent player of games, and sure, it might actually be a decent recording session, but you are going to be so tired by the end of it, and your hands are going to ache. Particularly if you're playing like an action title. And yeah, I just don't know how people do that. I mean, I don't understand how people are able to do like the charity, like the live stream charity marathons, like the stuff with Hellfire Comms that I have been part of, though in the background of them, so like in the chats and stuff, because that's obviously where I tend to be with things. But anybody who can do like incredibly long, like 24-hour gaming sessions and do it for charity, like Some Call Me Johnny did with Super Mario Sunshine in the Nintendo-thon. Like, mad props to anybody who can do that, because I know I certainly couldn't. Like, I'm ready to kind of pack it in after maybe an hour or two of playing a game solid. But anyway, we have a new enemy, which is called the Great Tengu, which basically acts like a blue Cyclops, except it is much more mean. So, the Great Tengu. So, I designed this goblin first. The source materials had these two as the highest ranked flying demons, and I thought it would be neat if we could combine them to do various things. The Great Tengus in the image scrolls came together very well in the end, and I'm very proud of them, says the artist, obviously. Then in its transformed form, which I can't remember how it goes into, I think it's just after a certain while. It's probably to do with certain elements or what have you. And that guy died very quickly before he even got into his transformed form. Jeez. But Great Tengu is such a simplistic name. I really like him. I remember getting shivers from seeing him remove his nose and have it turn into a peacock fan lightsaber. That's just too cool. And hopefully we will get to see that, because I would be disappointed if not. And yeah, I'm sure we will, because jeez, I know I'm not that good at beating enemies most of the time. And here we have a weird contraption. This is basically the Blizzard generator. And obviously, treat it like a slot machine. Slow down time and power slash the things facing us. Basically, you need to get it in the right positioning to actually work. But, well, for starters, we need to fire up the lever, and then that lever is how you get the order properly. However, you need to go into the nearby room that's just in the wall to get this all properly, because there is no way in hell that you're going to be able to know the specific layout of how these guys should be. You might be able to strike lucky, but really just continue the story, because we've potentially got something to find. Now, the Blizzard generator itself is also in the art book, obviously. A Blizzard generator that is, for some reason, shaped like a phonograph. This machine is the source of much woe for the people of Webkir. During the design phase, the hint panel was located at the foot of the generator. So there is a hint panel for this, but obviously they have moved it because that would make things way too easy. And there is the hint panel. And oh, there's our chance to do some blooming. Although, stuff may happen before that. There we go. Trying to hit me in the middle of a cutscene, aren't you, Tree? It's not going to end well for you. But yes, basically, where the line is, that needs to be the positioning of the eye, okay? And I am just letting my ink pots refill, because why the hell not? I think I was also making a note of the positioning so that I didn't screw it up. Now, if you want an easier time, obviously use Veil of Mist, and you can get these things in quite simply. But you can also just do the slightly cheap tactic of just keep pressing the B button to go into Celestial Brush mode until they're in the right positioning. Once they are kind of aligned, that's when you hit, rather than waiting for anything else. And, the blizzard's finished! Yay! And look! We have our final constellation. It's time for the 13th and final Brush God. Oh, we've been waiting so long for this day, and it's going to be beautiful. And so here we have Ōkami, the ice god, freezing god, however you kind of want to go about it. Basically, so Ite, so the Ite bit, comes from Iteru, which means to freeze. So Ōkami is literally the freeze god. So obviously the Ox, rainy month of December in East Asian Zodiac, so obviously winter time, so that works out quite well. It's also apparently believed as a sign of great luck that those born under the Ox in winter are given a life of ease. Whether that's actually true or not is a different matter, but still. Now apparently, so Ōkami carries a conch horn, which was used by ascetic mountain-dwelling monks of Shigenja and the Yamabushi in their long treks and pilgrimages of solitude and enlightenment. While in times of spring, fall and summer they would embark on these quests, winter would see them mediate and train in mountain carved caves to freezing weather. And because we've got all of the brush techniques, we have this wonderful reflector, the solar flare. And this is our most powerful reflector. So we didn't really even have the Thunder Edge for all that long. Now the cool thing about the solar flare is that if you wear it, then it will be there in cutscenes. It's the only kind of weapon that will happen with. Because obviously there are certain cutscenes where you've seen I've had like the rosaries on and it's shifted into the original reflector, but the solar flare will actually stay the same if you keep it on. I don't know whether I store it back or whether I kind of use it at a different point. It will get some use, don't worry, because it's a cool weapon. But yes, we are just kind of enjoying getting to use Blizzard. Freeze things and all that. Oh, it just makes me so happy. Now, the frustrating thing about Blizzard is that you get a secret celestial brush technique with Blizzard, which it's a slightly odd move, so how do I explain it? Basically, so the upgraded version is called Ice Storm. Basically, if you draw a snowflake, then you will kind of send forth a massive ice storm upon your enemies. It's very powerful, but it's very finicky to pull off. But the frustrating thing is that it cannot freeze or coalesce ice crystals in caverns to create floating crossable ice blocks, so its only use really is in battle. And pulling it off in battle is a pain, because there is obviously, well, it requires a lot of ink, and then it's a difficult move to pull off. But it's still there, and it's the only celestial brush technique that you aren't notified about when you get the move, which is kind of mean. In fact, it's kind of very mean. But, oh well. Now, something that I didn't know, which is a nice little touch, if you use Blizzard on animals or people, they turn into two-sphere Japanese snowmen, which is kind of adorable if you ask me. But that's certainly something I'm not showing off, because I didn't know it was a thing! Yay! Even now, there are still things about Ōkami that surprise me, and I love that. Like, I'm always fascinated when games, films, books and anything kind of manage to keep secrets for so long. And then when they eventually come out, it's just like, oh my god, that is the most amazing thing ever. I mean, in many ways, that kind of enjoyment is the source of, like, all of those ridiculous BuzzFeed articles. And, well, not necessarily specific to BuzzFeed, but all of the very clickbaity articles, which are just like, oh my god, did you ever notice this one specific thing in this film? And everyone's just like, oh my god, mind blown. Obviously, in some instances, it's ridiculous, because you're dealing with, like, something as simple as Tarzan never has a beard at any point during the film, the Disney film anyway. So it's just like, well, he has no body hair bar the hair on his head. It's just like, well, how? He's been living as a caveman, when did he learn to shave? And stuff like that. Obviously that is an example of people being dim, because loads of people spotted that when the film came out. It's just nobody really cared. But then there are instances where there have been subtle little things hidden throughout series that only come to kind of show right at the end, or many, many years after they originally came out. And I love it when that happens. Now, I will say that this section, while cool, because obviously it's climbing up a tower and that's always a fun thing to do, it can be frustrating because you are completely at the whim of how these guys move, and also completely at the whim of the camera, which is not necessarily the best thing in the world right now. Because as you can see, it's very close. And when it's very close to these guys, it can get a little bit difficult to manoeuvre. But it's fine, because I am pretty sure that we are at the top of where we need to be. As you can see, we've climbed quite a long way. And pretty much, we are at, or near, the halfway mark for the dungeon. Because it is split into two halves, because obviously we have the twin demons, so of course we have two halves to the dungeon, because that only makes sense. Now, this is a little bit finicky, because we've got something that we need to pick up. At least I think we have something to pick up over there. It's not as bad as a later version of this room, which really does have, well, it really is awkward, because you've got fiery versions of these and you've got to ice things up and it's insane. But either way, and I should quickly point out that the solar flare has fire properties, so you can use it as a source for your fire bursts, which is really helpful. Not that I think I ever use that move at all, although I might use it now. Please tell me... Yes, I'm being smart. Good. So, as you can see, all of the kind of top weapons have wonderful little elemental properties, which is really cool. Also, I hate this room. Just because it's just so finicky. But there we go. I think if we just have a little rest and then have a battle, and then we will be done for the part. We've got another one of these dogus, which is going to go down pretty gosh darn quickly considering our wonderful upgraded weapons. I mean, if you just look at the speed at which this thing's going down in comparison to, I think, how long it took earlier, you can see how powerful we've gotten, even in kind of this short space of time, thanks to our wonderful weapons. But there we go. More demon fangs for us, and it's time to continue on with the Wawku Shrine. Hell yeah!